Good afternoon, good evening students, I hope you're doing good. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're back with another lecture concerning Civilization for 3rd year students. We are going to carry on with the same chapter, that is the First World War or the Great War. We've already seen Europe before 1914, which means before the war. We've already seen the causes of the war, the remote ones and the direct ones or the short-term causes. Today, we're going to see the war itself. But before I start, I invite you as usual to like the Facebook page of this channel in order to be notified whenever I post something new, and also subscribe to the channel. That would encourage me to do more and also help you out during the period of exams. Now, without any further ado, we shall start with the plan of the lecture. First, we will start with the beginning of the war, to give some dates that you need to remember. Then we are going to talk about the Western and the Eastern Front, or fronts, because we have two, the Western and the Eastern fronts. We are going to talk about the Ottoman Empire. How did the Ottoman Empire enter the war? Then we are going to talk about the trench warfare. This is something that we need to know. We need to define. Then we are going to talk about some of the most important battles of the First World War. Then we are going to talk about the end of the war. So the beginning of the war, it started on July 28th when Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Then on August the 1st, Austria's ally, Germany, declares war on Russia, because Russia is also an ally of Serbia. And we have on August the 3rd, Germany declares war on France, and France is an ally of Russia, and then invaded neutral Belgium. There is something that we need to clarify here. When we're looking at the three, let's say, those nations like Austria-Hungary, France, Germany, Serbia and Russia, we all know that there is a problem. So there is a war. But when we talk about Belgium, Belgium was not included in the conflict. But why was it invaded by the Germans? See, Belgium is a neutral country according to the Treaty of London in 1839. Germany declared war on Russia, so the war started with Russia. Then, since Russia is an ally of France, Germany declares war on France as well. Now, Germany had a problem. She could have had two, let's say, two fronts. The Western Front against France and the Eastern Front against Russia. So, Germany decided to attack first France to eliminate France, then go back to take care of Russia. But at the time Germany wanted to do so, France already started the, let's say, establishing defenses in order to prevent the Germans from entering France. So that would take a lot of time for Germany to invade through the German and the French borders. So Germany decided to flank France, to invade Belgium and then attack France from the side. The moment Germany invaded Belgium, and Belgium was a neutral country, which means the, let's say, the empires or the countries, the European countries, all agreed that, maybe most of them agreed, including Germany, that in times of peace or war, Belgium would stay neutral. Now Germany invaded Belgium. Let's say somehow, or Germany indeed violated the treaty. When Germany did so, Britain entered the war. Now Britain declares war on Germany. Now we have the most powerful nations of Europe fighting each other. This is the beginning of the First World War. This is the first point. The second point is the Western and the Eastern fronts. If you talk about the beginning of the war, you cannot miss the first battles, on first month of combat, of course. These battles were characterized by attacks on both fronts. There were attacks on the Western Front, there were attacks on the Eastern Front. So we have Austria-Hungary attacked Serbia first in the south. Then we have Russia attacked both Germany and Austria-Hungary. This is in the Eastern Front. Then Germany attacked first Belgium and France in the Western Front. So all these attacks later on turned into trenches in central France and remained that way for the rest of the war, even the Eastern Front as well. So there were attacks, then they turned into trenches. You need to keep in mind the word trenches. We are going to explain it. I'm going to display some pictures in order to understand what do we mean by trench warfare. Before I get to that point, we need to talk about one other specific point as well. It is the Ottoman Empire. So, in the late 1914, the Ottoman Empire was pushed into the war. Through a trick from the Germans, these Germans bought ships of the Ottoman Empire or from the Ottoman Empire's navy and attacked Russia. So these ships were Ottoman Empire's, property, but they were, controlled by the Germans. It resulted in a war that was mainly in 1915, and of course this war was dominated by Allied actions, because we don't have only one. There were Allied actions against the Ottoman Empire in the Mediterranean Sea. For example, we have the failed attack on the Dardanelles by Britain and France, and of course the British invasion of Gallipoli. They invaded this peninsula, and of course Britain also launched separate campaigns against the Turks in Mesopotamia. Now, these are, this is a small background about the entry of the Ottoman Empire to war. Now we shall discuss the trench warfare. So, as you can see on the screen right now, both sides built trenches. Soldiers fought from dug-in positions, shooting at each other with machine guns, heavy artillery that were in the back, of course, and chemical weapons. The land between the trenches, or the trench lines, is called the no man's land. No one should go there, otherwise they would be killed. Of course, this land is usually covered with barbed wires and landmines. Now, we're going to move to the most important battles of the First World War. So, the first one is the Battle of the Marne. At the start of the First World War, Germany hoped to avoid fighting on two fronts. When we say two fronts, we have the Eastern Front and the Western Front. For Germany, the Western Front was France and Great Britain later on, but in the beginning there was France. Then, in the Eastern Front, Germany had the, Russia, the Russian Empire. Now, Germany wanted to knock out France, then move to Russia in order not to fight two fronts at the same time. So the initial German offensive had indeed some early success, but there were not enough reinforcements immediately available to sustain what we call a momentum. Later on, the French and the British forces combined, launched a counter-offensive, at the Marne in order to get back or to take back those or maybe to win back the battles. This was between the 6th and 10th September 1914, and after several days of bitter fighting the Germans retreated. The second battle is called the Battle of, or maybe it's a campaign. It is called the Gallipoli campaign. It was between the 25th April 1915 and the 9th January 1916. It was the land-based element of a strategy intended to allow Allied ships to pass through the Dardanelles, to capture also Constantinople, which is now Istanbul, and then ultimately knock the Ottoman Turkey out of the war. But Allied plans were based on the mistaken belief that the Ottomans could be easily overcome. Here the Allies had these, let's say, these plans, such as to allow Allied ships to pass through the Dardanelles in order to make it easier to attack the Austria-Hungary Empire, and also this was one of their strategies. But in order to do so, they had to knock the Ottoman Turkey out of the war. So they believed that since the Ottoman Empire was already, let's say, weak, so it is going to be easy to knock it out of the war. But the Ottomans proved that they were still strong enough, and they opposed the Allied intention or the Allied invasion. The third battle is the Battle of Verdun, between 21st February and 18th December 1916. It was the longest battle of the First World War. It was also one of the costliest. It began in February 1916, like I said, with a German attack on the fortified French town of Verdun, where bitter fighting would continue for most of the year. This is one of the longest battles of the First World War. The last battle I've picked is the Battle of the Somme. Here the Battle of the Somme and the Battle of Verdun are interrelated. You can say that the Battle of the Somme is a result, or let's say another cause of the let's say another consequence. Sorry, not a cause. Another consequence of the Battle of Verdun. So the Battle of the Somme, that was between the 1st July and 18th November 1916. It was a joint operation between British and French forces intended to achieve a decisive victory over the Germans on the Western Front. For many in Britain, the resulting battle remains the most painful and infamous episode of the First World War. So the Battle of the Somme was, let's say, the fact that the French lost many soldiers in the Battle of Verdun. The British had to take the offensive in the Battle of the Somme in order to push the Germans to, let's say, clear some of their soldiers from Verdun and take them to this Battle of the Somme. Anyways, these are the, let's say, most important battles that have happened during the First World War. But of course, you can also find others. Now we move to, let's say, the end of the war. What you need to know is by 1918, offensives were launched from both sides, desperately to win the war, and of course they failed. In August, or between August and September, the Allies succeeded in driving the Germans or the German army to the German borders through a decisive offensive along the Meuse River and the Argonne Forest. There was the outbreak. These are small details about the end of the war. There was the outbreak of a deadly influenza. Both sides lost soldiers, so things got desperate. And both Germany and Austria-Hungary began to lose control of their countries, due to, of course, mutinies from their military leaders. And then on November 11th, 1918, the Germans signed an armistice, and they surrendered, which means they surrendered their arms, gave up much of their navy, and evacuated the occupied territory. That was the end of the war. Of course, it couldn't have, been achieved without the entry of the United States of America, which we are going to see in the next video. So next time we are going to see the reasons why the United States of America entered World War I. If you have any kind of question, feel free to ask them in the comments below or contact me on the Facebook page. Share this video with your friends. Perhaps this might help them. Otherwise, I tell you, see you in the next video. Peace.